What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get
Prices
to
for new cars are rewritten with enviable regularity, so that sometimes even last year's figures seem gentle, and even price. Lists from 3 years ago seem unrealistically distant. For example, 3 years ago for less than $500,000 you could buy a compact foreign car with hydromechanical automatic transmission, and in a decent configuration. And if you did not remember at once what we are talking about, you still have time until the end of the material. In the meantime, let's find out what 10 cars are the cheapest on the market now, at the beginning of the second quarter of 2021. We will arrange them in ascending order of price, and the first place has not created any intrigue for a long time. Price: from 511,000 rubles in mid-March, AvtoVAZ once again adjusted the price lists upwards, and all models became more expensive, by the amount from 8 to 20,000 rubles. However, the most affordable car on the market, the Lada Granta, which crossed the $500,000 mark in the base configuration, became landmark. This, however, does not prevent it from remaining the best-selling car in Russia. 126,000 copies were sold last year. At the same time, Granta has only lost in equipment for the last year. However, few people will regret it. The matter is that AvtoVAZ has retired its robotized box AMT for its low popularity. It was illogical to keep the unit, for which less than 10% of buyers paid extra, so its disappearance from both Granta and Vesta can be considered justified. The only exception is Granta Cross, to which automatic does not fit constructively. Its low crankcase means a loss in ground clearance. So these cars are still equipped with AMT gearbox. Otherwise Granta remains true to itself. 3 motors, 4-speed automatic Jetco as an alternative to 5-speed mechanics and 4 body types plus cross universal. By the way, in the foreseeable future, the VAZ budget car should get an update. The base engine 11,186 with 87 horsepower should be replaced by a new 90 horsepower 8-valve motor 11182, which has already appeared under the hood of the restyled Largus. About why the 8-valve engine deserves the title of a new one and what technical changes it has received, we have told in detail. The list of basic equipment in Granta remains about zero. It still includes a driver's airbag, ABS, and BAS systems, as well as ERA GLONASS. But if a couple of years ago such a set cost 435,000 rubles, today, 511,000. For a car with air conditioning you need to give a minimum of 567,000 rubles, and Granta with an automatic costs a minimum of 664,000. The most expensive version, also automated, is estimated at 704,000 rubles. Other body types will traditionally be more expensive than the sedan. Liftback costs from 533 to 724,000 rubles, station wagon from 540 to 731,000 rubles, and hatchback, for which the list of configurations is reduced, from 556 to 719,000 rubles. The most expensive Granta is the Cross version, which costs from 632 to 724,000 rubles. It is worth remembering that keeping the cost of the top configuration at the level of ordinary versions is achieved due to a shorter list of equipment and the use of an AMT box instead of a hydromechanical automatic. Price: from 608,000 rubles. There is not much intrigue in building a list of the cheapest cars on the market. In fact, it consists mainly in putting the cars in the right order. And the fact that Niva was the second in the list is not much of a surprise either. After all, last year it did not reach the top 10 of the best-selling cars in the country with the result of 29,000 copies. At that, all that Niva has acquired lately is a beautiful name. From faceless Lada 4x4 it turned first back into Niva, and then into Niva Legend. Technically, it is still the same car, with a single 8-valve 1.7-litre 21214 engine with 83 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and the full legacy of Soviet engineering, and despite the fact that it has long been impossible to buy it for the former 350,000 rubles, it still remains a non-alternative option for many situations. Now Niva Legend expands the price list not at the expense of completions and equipment list, but at the expense of different versions and special versions. 3-door, 5-door, urban. Here is the whole list, even in spite of winding down of external production of Bronto version. But there is a special version black with black ceiling, seats, and alloy wheels. Prices for the basic 3-door start from 608,000 rubles, and for a car with air conditioning you need to pay 664,000. Having paid 20 more, you can get the urban version, and the same black configuration is 693,000 rubles. We will not allocate in a separate item the 5-door version, which costs from 659,000 rubles. Here air conditioning starts from 715,000 rubles, and plastic bumpers instead of metal ones are estimated at 735,000 rubles. Price, from 690,000 rubles or from 704,000 rubles. Despite the fact that Logan is not what it used to be, it remains true to itself when it comes to price and is still the cheapest foreign car on our market. Accordingly, it would be strange to expect technical breakthroughs from it. Since its debut, the second generation is equipped with a familiar set of power units. The basic 8-valve motor K7M for 82 horsepower is combined only with a manual transmission, and a more powerful alternative is a 16-valve H4M for 113 horsepower, which works with the same manual. Not old 4-speed automatic transmission with index DP2 is combined only with less powerful engine K4M, giving out 102 horsepower. And all this is the case when the age of motors and boxes is rather in favor of sales. Figures confirm it. Logan was among the 10 most popular cars last year, having sold 32.5 thousand cars. The methods of achieving the title of the cheapest foreign car in Logan also remain unchanged since its appearance. It is the maximum cheapening of the car by cutting the list of equipment. The basic Logan by the length of this list has not gone far from Granta. It surpasses it only by the presence of power steering, and otherwise it is all the same: single airbag, ABS, and central locking. Even the onboard computer and cabin filter are cut out in favor of economy. But such a car costs 690,000 rubles. The nearest Korean competitors lag behind by more than 100,000. While it is not a question of richness of equipment. In fact, though Koreans do not squander the same tricks with absence of conditioner in the base, but do not economize on everything else. And conditioner in Logan is not in the form of paid option for 30,000, and in the list of standard equipment appears only in a complete set life with a motor on 113 forces, and such car costs 816,000, that is far from basic 690 and already on a par with Koreans. Logan with an automatic will cost at least 871,000 rubles, and the most expensive version drive with automatic transmission costs 921,000. And this price is also not final. Options like decent multimedia with a color screen, side airbags, climate control, Parktronic and other Logan can be easily driven for a mark above $1 million. Sandero is even more expensive, from 704,000 in base to 934,000 for top without additional options. Price, from 695,000 rubles. Lada X-Ray, a model with the most opaque future in the Togliatti lineup. We wrote about the fact that at the end of 2020 X-Ray lost a third of buyers it squeezed only into the top 25 in terms of sales with the result of 19,000 units. However, this figure cannot be called bad at all. After all, a place in the top 25, albeit with a result 5 times more modest than that of the Vesta, still leaves some hope. In addition, X-Ray tries to compensate for the situation by the breadth of choice. In terms of equipment, it is one of the most variable VAZ models. Ordinary X-Ray is equipped exclusively with VAZ 1.6-liter motor 21129 with 106 horsepower, but it is paired with either a 5-speed manual or VAZ Robot AMT, which has retained its position here. And here X-Ray Cross has a much wider range of units. Basic here remains the same 1.6-liter motor paired with a manual, followed by a 1.8-liter engine 21179 which is also combined only with a manual gearbox, and at the top of the line of power units, French H4M paired with a Variator JF015A. About why such a combination appeared here, we have told in detail, and in general, it clearly wins over the pair of the VAZ engine and AMT gearbox. The price is compensated by class competition. The X-Ray Cross is intended to impose the struggle against compact crossovers like the Hyundai Creta, and not least at the expense of price. Yes, about prices. The higher we move, the smaller the price step between models becomes. So, if Logan is offered from 690,000, the cheapest X-Ray is only 5,000 more. Thus airbags here already too, and also there is a steering wheel with amplifier and adjustment on height, front electric windows, and a wide set of safety systems at movement. Air conditioning, however, appears only in the next configuration for $776,000, along with heated seats and mirrors, audio system, rear power windows and some other little things. For X-Ray with a robotized transmission, it is necessary to pay a minimum of $806,000, and the most expensive execution Lux Prestige. For $864,000 is completed only with a manual. At X-Ray Cross the situation is similar. In base for $806,000 there is no conditioner, and it appears only for $843,000. The crossover with a variator costs from 938,000 rubles, and with one 8-liter engine is even more expensive, from 976,000. But the equipment here is much richer. The most expensive execution Lux Prestige with 2 pedals exceeds $1,068,000 rubles. However, there is a special version Instinct with multimedia with an 8-inch screen and Yandex services, and it is 40,000 more expensive. Price, from 705,000 rubles. Largus has undergone restyling recently, and we told about all the changes in it in the test drive. One of the main ones was just the new 8-valve 11182 engine, although the redesigned interior and slightly expanded list of equipment can also be considered important. Otherwise, the technique has changed little. Automatic transmissions did not appear, and the most powerful motor remains 16-valve 21,129 with 106 horsepower. However, all this will surely be enough to stay in the top 10 in sales. 2020 Largus, for example, finished in 7th place with a result of 37,000 cars. With restyling, Largus became a little more expensive. It has gained 22,000 rubles and costs from 705,000 rubles. However, the base has become better in small details. There is a key fob with central locking remote control and central locking itself. Automatic headlight shutoff, turn signal indicators in mirrors and onboard computer. However, the starting equipment is not rich. One airbag, ABS with EBD and steering wheel height adjustment. That's all the key options. For the car, which will have at least air conditioning and power steering, it is necessary to give already 767,000, and more. Or less decent execution will cost 805,000. Lagris with a 16-valve engine costs from 825,000 rubles, and the 7-seat version with an 8-valve engine, from 832,000. The top 7-seat Largus in Lux Prestige configuration costs 956,000 rubles. The Cross version, which does not offer frankly poor options and 8-valve engine, starts from 880,000 rubles, and in the Prestige version the car is close to 1,996,000 rubles. Price, from 724,000 rubles. There was no doubt that the Vesta would be on the list, and here it is, in 6th place in terms of price increase. At the same time, the model is the second most popular after the Granta. 107,000 cars were sold in 2020. Not least, this is facilitated by the widest range of options. 2 body types, for each of which a cross version is offered, as well as 3 motors and 2 gearboxes. The range of power units, however, here is very similar to that of the X-Ray. The base engine, 16-valve 21,129 on 106 forces in a pair with a mechanical. Behind it follows one 8-liter 21,179 on 122 forces, and instead of dismissed robot works all the same variator JF015E in a pair with a motor H4M on 113 forces. In this case, the whole range of motors and boxes in Vesta, unlike X-Ray, is available for all cars, not only for the Cross lineup. And about the features of the car with a French-Japanese power unit we told in detail at the end of 2019. Which is when it made its debut on the Vesta. The Vesta pricing story is as deceptive as all the others. The base sedan costs 724,000 rubles, and although it has frontal airbags, a power steering wheel with height and reach adjustment, front power windows and heated mirrors, it still lacks air conditioning, which only appears for 754,000. Decently equipped Vesta still costs from 785,000 rubles, with a Motor 1.8 sedan starts from 882,000, and with a variator, from 849,000. The most expensive Vesta in the sedan body costs 1.037 million rubles, and here will already be heated rear seats and steering wheel, side airbags, multimedia with color screen and much more. Universal cannot be bought cheaper than 811,000, but here there is no marketing kit, and air conditioning will be available in any case. Versions Cross by default begin with decently equipped execution comfort, which costs from 872,000 for a sedan and from 926,000 for a station wagon SW Cross. Well, the richest cross versions, of course, pass the million mark. 1.068 million for the Vesta Cross and 1.127 for the SW Cross. Price. From $763,000. The transformation of Chevrolet Niva into Lada Niva Travel is one of the most discussed events of this year. However, in terms of technology there is absolutely nothing to discuss. Restyling has not even touched the interior, having limited itself to bumpers, optics, and external plastic. Otherwise, the Niva has remained almost the same as it was created in the 90s of the last century in the 90s of the last century, sharing the entire aggregate base with the Niva. One engine, 1.7-litre 8-valve 2123 for 80 forces, one gearbox, and all-wheel drive. However, even such an archaic set allows the car to remain in the top 15 in sales. However, from this year sales of Niva Travel will be considered a little more problematic. AvtoVAZ in statistics for AEB adds up the results of sales of both Nivas, so in statistical calculations the name Niva will rise even higher. And what else rises higher is the price. With updating Niva has risen in price insignificantly, by the 25th of October 1000 depending on a complete set, but these prices will hardly last even till the end of this year. Now the SUV costs from $763,000 in the basic version Classic, with driver's airbag, power steering, front electric windows and electric mirrors with heating. Air conditioner appears in the next version for 820,000 rubles, and the second airbag, only in the Lux version for 906,000. Well, the most expensive Niva Travel in the Lux off-road configuration will cost 921,000 rubles. Price. From 820,000. The former bestseller of the Korean company has now lost the first intra-team place to Creta Crossover. And the difference in volumes is solid, 1.5 times. Solaris finished last year on the 6th place of the list of the most popular cars with the result of 49,000 units, and Creta became the 4th with 73.5 thousand copies. However, the Creta can't make our list today due to its higher price. Solaris, which debuted in 2017, has undergone restyling in the past, but technically has not changed much. The engine range consists of two long familiar units, a 1.4-litre from the Kappa family and a 1.6-litre from the Gamma family. The first gives out exactly 100 horsepower, and the second 123, and both are combined either with a manual or with an automatic on 6 steps. Actually, this is the end of the choice. Even the Koreans have refused from a hatchback body due to a small share of sales. Solaris prices do not stand still either. For years ago, at the time of its debut, the sedan cost from 625,000, and now it is impossible to approach it without 820,000. The equipment is richer than in Logan. Frontal airbags, a steering wheel with amplifier and height adjustment, electric adjustment of lumbar support of a driver's seat, and also a set of safety systems. However, to get air conditioning, you need to pay extra also for heated front seats and side mirrors, audio system, rear power windows, and some other options, and such a sedan will cost already 901,000 rubles. Solaris with an automatic will cost at least 941,000 rubles, and conditionally the top elegance configuration costs 1,116,000 rubles. Conditionally, because, firstly, for it you can buy options for 123,000, and secondly, now there is also a special version Pro Safety for 1.251 million rubles. Price. From 820,000. The Picanto is not at all what people in Russia think of when choosing an inexpensive car. The Super Mini class is virtually extinct in Russia, and the hatchback from Kia reminds us why. It costs almost as much as larger models. And it is not suitable for everyone. However, the Koreans can afford to keep a niche model in the range, despite insignificant sales. Thus, the hatchback is even regularly updated. The next restyling took place at the beginning of this year. Technique remained the same, and it is good. In Europe, Picanto is now sold with a robotized gearbox with one clutch, and we still have a classic automatic, albeit only 4-speed. The engine range has not changed either. The base motor is a 3-cylinder liter engine with 67 horsepower, and the alternative is 1.2-liter with 4 cylinders and 84 forces. Thus the first is combined only with a 5-speed manual gearbox, and the second, with the same automatic. This allows to keep more or less decent starting price for the imported model, although it still has little effect on sales. The basic Picanto costs 820,000 rubles, and despite its size, it is poorly equipped. Front airbags, power steering, heated washer nozzles, That's all the wealth. Air conditioner, 4 power windows, heated steering wheel, mirrors and front seats, audio system, and some other benefits of life. Cost 895,000 rubles. That is, the real Picanto will cost no cheaper than Rio. With an automatic, the normally equipped compact costs 935,000 rubles, and the most expensive execution GT line pulls on 1,115,000 rubles. It is not surprising that with the restyling the Koreans refused from the cross-version X line, because it was even more expensive. Price, from 880,000. Unlike Solaris, Rio continues to hold the leadership in the class of the most popular foreign cars in Russia. In 2020, it is second only to Granta and Vesta and has sold 88,000 copies, beating Creta. Although in general it is the same Solaris in a different wrapper, debut in 2017, restyling in 2020, the same engine range and the same gearboxes. Kia, however, has a hatchback body, but is presented only in a pseudo-cross version of the Rio X and does not have an attractive base configuration. Well, the sedan is designed to attract attention, including the price. The base price tag is 870,000 rubles, for which you can get almost the same options as in Solaris, as well as air conditioning. Yes, Rio is the first car in our list, which has air conditioning included in the list of standard equipment. Perhaps, that's why it sells better than Solaris, despite its higher prices. For example, Rio with automatic costs from 980,000 rubles, 40,000 more expensive than Solaris, and the top configuration. Premium will cost 1,235,000 rubles. And no packages of paid options, everything is included. Offset our list for objective reasons did not include other popular models. Skoda Rapid costs from 892,000 rubles, Volkswagen. Polo, from 930,000 rubles, the new Duster, from 954,000 rubles. However, there are also cars that, strictly speaking, should be on the list due to low prices, but in reality are only formally present on the market. Let's find out what these cars are and why they are in the off-the-list category. The real Chevrolet is still nominally present in Russia, offering only Tahoe and Traverse. However, the company Unbeatable Motors, which bought out GM's share in the enterprise in Uzbekistan, has settled the issue of supplying Chevrolet-branded cars to Russia, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. These are the Spark, Nexia, and Cobalt models long familiar to us under the Daewoo and Raven brands. At the same time, Uzbek Chevrolet has its own official website, which unites a network of Chevrolet dealership centers of the mass segment. For their sale in Russia, a separate company was created, LLC Kales RUS, which is engaged in sales and warranty service of Chevrolet Cobalt, Chevrolet Nexia, and Chevrolet Spark. In fact, it is a joint venture of Unbeatable Motors and Saryaka Avtoprom, as the production of cars is spread over 2 plants. Chevrolet Spark is supplied directly from Uzbekistan, from the Unbeatable Motors plant, while Chevrolet Cobalt and Nexia are assembled in Kazakhstan. At the same time, it is possible to buy cars in Russia officially, and there are even recommended prices for them. But only there are not enough dealers, although there are plans to expand the dealer network with an emphasis on the regions, not the capital. Therefore, on the one hand, it would be wrong not to mention the new old Chevrolet, but on the other hand, the narrow dealer network and the general situation do not allow to speak about full-fledged availability of cars and mass sales. Price, from 650,000 price, from 800,000 price, from 720,000 at the same time in Russia, the same cars are sold by another company, Raven. Even less than 3 years ago, Raven 2 was not just the cheapest foreign car with automatic, but the cheapest car with automatic transmission on the Russian market with a price tag of 489,000 rubles. Today it costs 65% more, from 805,000 rubles. However, it should be understood that Raven is in no way related to the new Chevrolet. According to Executive Director of Kels Rus Vadim Atamanov, his company has nothing to do with the cars sold under the Raven brand, and will not bear any warranty obligations. Against the background of the fact that the future of the Raven brand is very vague, and in fact it is more about the sale of stock, remains, the purchase of Raven even against the background of Chevrolet looks even less justified. Nevertheless, it is still possible to buy these cars, and there are official prices for them, so we could not mention them within the material. Price, from 805,600 rubles price, from 788,640 rubles price, from 805,600 rubles well, and another brand with a vague future is Lafan. In detail about the problems of the company we wrote at the end of 2019 and then summarized interim results at the end of 2020 however. Against the background of bankruptcy and the impending closure of dealerships, buying these cars now is a dubious venture. Especially since we are not even talking about fresh cars, but about the sale of remnants. Buyers are offered copies of 2017 to 2018 years of production. So, the offers from Lafan also unambiguously go into the category of off-sale. Price, from 680,000 price, from 690,000 price, from 640,000 price, from 980,000. In conclusion, while the Russian market may present a unique set of challenges, there are still options for budget-conscious buyers looking for affordable vehicles. From compact city cars to practical family options, the 10 models we've explored demonstrate that you can find reliable transportation without breaking the bank. Remember, even in a market where prices can soar, there are still gems available for those willing to do their research. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the 10 cheapest cars in Russia. Happy car hunting!